Hi everybody, it's Professor Wells here. So we are starting to get into the 5 elements associated with art making. They include context, artist training, making the art, innovation and self-expression, as well as the role of artists globally. So what we're going to do is we're going to flash back to the past, to the ancient world of the Egyptians, and take a look at my PowerPoint as I explain the importance of context with the inspiration for some of their most iconic forms of architecture that you might already be familiar with. All right, let's go. All right, fantastic. Here we are. Some of you are probably familiar with pyramids. Pyramids in ancient Egypt served as mortuary buildings, as tombs to protect the remains of the pharaoh. And as you probably know, those remains would have been mummified and entombed in a coffin, and perhaps that coffin entombed within a sarcophagus, and then placed within a secret chamber inside a pyramid. So perhaps the ones you might think of top of mind are on the bottom right, the Great Pyramids of Giza. But there was context for that pyramid look. The 3 pyramids you see here were for 3 Old Kingdom era pharaohs. But focusing on the larger image above, we have the step pyramid of Djoser that you can find in Saqqara, Egypt, dating to 2650 to 2631 BCE, slightly different and older than the Great Pyramids of Giza. And it informs what would come along when it's time for the Great Pyramids to be designed and built. But if we then pivot to the lower left, there's an even earlier context we need to consider, a precedent in the form of a mastaba. So a mastaba is the earliest form of tomb architecture associated with ancient Egypt. What it shares in common with the later pyramid forms is its stone construction, but it was a single elevation above ground, that is. So you can see an artist's rendering on the right that it has a trapezoidal shape, it has an entrance, and then looking at the artist's drawings from a bird's eye view and side profile view as well, you can see that it had interior chambers. What you find in Egypt is much of the ground, at least the ground chosen for these tomb sites, sat on bedrock, which meant that they could excavate down below the bedrock and create additional rooms or chambers. That might be where the sarcophagus of the deceased would be interred. Or maybe perhaps above ground, unless that's used as some kind of a place of worship, a place to deposit grave goods for the afterlife that the Egyptians believed in. So it was paramount to create almost a fortress-like structure to protect the mummified remains of particularly pharaohs, whom they believed were divine beings who were entitled to an eternal life in the afterlife, and the ability to not only enjoy the great beyond among the immortals in the heavens, but also to be able to return to earth to repossess their mummified remains and have the best of both worlds, if you will. So that is how we take the mastaba, and then in Saqqara, with the example of the step pyramid of Djoser, you have the mastaba informing a stacked idea. So it's essentially the mastaba form, the trapezoidal form, stacked one on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other, in decreasing sizes, which creates that 4-slided sloped pyramid shape that we're all familiar with. Fast forward to the Great Pyramids of Giza. And the choice was also to create a structure of a monumental scale and size. And of course, in the ancient world, all the way through contemporary religious architecture, you find that the idea of height is analogous with connecting to the divine, to the heavens. But that the slope sides are no longer stepped, they are smooth. In fact, if you can see on the middle example of the Great Pyramid, it would have been faced with smooth limestone. The entire thing would have been constructed with locally quarried blocks of limestone with a labor pool that was not slave driven, but in a period of prosperity was a paid labor class who believed in passion in the mission of each providing this resurrection machine for pharaohs to achieve eternal life. So, context. It's important to understand sometimes the culture and beliefs of a civilization like ancient Egypt, but also to understand the precedents. What came before that informs the direction of a creative product, like a work of architecture. Thanks for joining me.